All right, welcome to 2024. We're back. This will be the first video of the year. And I think we've got a doozy. I was going to record a little something today about so there was a dev post related to 2024 and upcoming. Basically, it was like a roadmap that talked about things that they're going to take a really long time to do. It's the thing about the Sunderers and the class balance, and specifically, I was going to talk about the class balance part. And I was thinking about writing a little bit of something, and I sat down at the computer and doing my default like run through, checking everything. Happened to go. I wanted to see if anybody had talked about this yet. Chances are extremely low, but in case somebody had, I wanted to know if they did. Because believe it or not, I don't like to. If somebody said something already, then it's probably not. I don't want to go in and be like, oh, here, by the way, this is my take on it, and it's exactly the same take as everybody else. I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm sure that has happened in the past, but for the most part, I like to keep my takes in-house and share them with you guys here in this space. But anyway, I searched PlanetSide 2 in the YouTube search box, and of course, the first channel, the very first thing at the top of the list is Zealous's page, and he just released a video like 20 minutes ago. And the title of it, normally I wouldn't necessarily watch it and do a video on it, but it's an interesting topic for me because I'm someone who's tried to point out and talk about the fundamental issues with the game for a long time. So when I see someone like this guy post exposing PlanetSide 2's weak underbelly, the core fundamental issues, number one, shit, I'm in. Let's go. Let's see what he's got to say. So I sat down and I watched the first 5 minutes and 10 seconds. That's all I've watched so far. It's a 12-minute video, which is, damn, that's pretty long for Zealous. So I watched the first 5 minutes and 10 seconds, and like, you know what? Let me do something. It's 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday. I've got nothing better to do. Let me watch this shitty video and put my spin on it. Let's go, shall we?
With PlanetSide 2, but they'll very rarely go into exactly. You'll often hear vets say that there are core fundamental issues with PlanetSide 2, but they'll very rarely go into exactly what those issues are. Now, truthfully, this
not really, because usually when someone says something, like when I say the words core fundamental issues, I'm talking about a specific subject that we are currently engaged in. Like there's a conversation going on, and I'm talking about it a little bit. There's somebody else saying something about it. There's a discussion, a conversation of sorts going on. And then it comes up that this kind of specific part of what we're talking about is a fundamental issue. So I don't know what videos this guy's watching or who he's talking about. Maybe he's talking more about the general public or the Reddit or something. Because of course there are a lot of people that say, one of the more frustrating things is that the game's so old now, and the fundamental issues of the game are pretty concrete and set in stone, and they've been that way for a really long time. So it's annoying when Johnny-come-lately casual shitter comes out of the woodwork and starts to want to have conversations about it, or they want to interject themselves into the conversation, and they're like, it's like somebody who hasn't watched fucking, like you're watching a show and it's 10 seasons in, and this person shows up in season 8 or 9 and doesn't know any of the context about how we got to this point or whatsoever. And you're like casually trying to have a conversation with someone at work or something about the show in its current timeline. And then the guy that's just started watching it has nothing to contribute because they don't know anything about the character building, what's happened previously in time, and all that other stuff. And those people are really fucking annoying. It's like, bro, go do your homework. Go do your homework and then come back and tell me. And then we don't have to fill you in on all this basic stuff, right? But that's just probably not the case with
There's
this
quite
guy.
a lot of core fundamental issues, and if I was to list them all in one video, the video might end up being 2 hours long, and so for brevity's sake I'm going to start with 2 here, and then every week we're going to address a few more. In this series as well, we're going to be ignoring small balance issues or bugs, so we're not going to mention when we look at something like an Outfit Wars or Lane Smash format why NC does so well. We're not going to talk about why the PPA probably is better than the Banshee or the Airhammer right now. I'm also not going to talk about unintentional bugs in this series, like for example being able to craft multiple expeditions at the same time, or audio localization not working. And I'm not also going to talk about any single individuals, no matter how distasteful their character may be. So we're going to be focusing on the core issues, not small, benign issues which cumulatively can have a decent effect on the overall gameplay, but aren't necessarily the biggest things to be focusing on right now.
Okay, bro, let's get into your core issues with the game. Let's go.
Now to begin here, to start to understand PlanetSide's core fundamental issues, let's take a quick walk down memory lane. It's 2012.
Oh, this should be really interesting for an escalation
And
player.
people could loudly exclaim opinions or words without having to worry about their proverbial or literal head getting chopped off. Wokeism was in its infancy, and I'd say even in 2012 things were a lot less politicized, and that even extended into PlanetSide 2, and we'll go over that at some point. But more importantly for this video, the idea of min-maxing or metagaming wasn't really something that in 2012 people were massively interested in. It's very
You understand that why that is the case, though, right? So the game came out in November of 2012, right? So maybe I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say that you know that 2012 was only about 40 days maybe-ish of the game being out. I don't know what kind of long-term exposure to playing games over a long period of time. I don't know what experience you have with that. So I'm not going to assume that you have little to no experience with that. But as someone who does have exposure to playing the same specific games for extremely long periods of time, generally in the first 40 to 60 days and maybe even the first year, people are figuring the game out. They're learning the game. A new game is released. There's a lot of shit to learn. There's all these different classes, all these different weapons, all these different loadouts, and on and on and on and on. And even back then, there was a lot of shit. And generally speaking, you're not going to see, and 2012, like he said, he did bring up the fact that 2012, yeah, people I think were worse in 2012 when it comes to this sort of thing. Now, this is something over time that has evolved. There's more, as time evolves and you play a game for longer, there's more information, more players cycle through and come through the game, which gives you a better chance at acquiring people for the game that have more talent. The more talented players are generally the people who learn the game the fastest and understand how to min-max better. Those are the people. Those people are generally better than the pack or the casual horde because they do all those things better. The casual horde takes a really long time to learn things. And PlanetSide 2 is a perfect example of that. There's basic fundamental shit in this game that people that have been playing for 5,000 plus hours still don't know how to do. Take a look at Boil Down. Boil Down has played the game since launch and doesn't understand how movement and gunplay mechanics work. So it's a perfect scenario. PlanetSide 2 gives you a perfect look at that. Now you can say people weren't min-maxing right away, but maybe you weren't, but I'm fairly certain that there were at least outfits and smaller groups of players who were doing that from the beginning of the game. Just because you didn't experience it or you weren't involved in that and you weren't a part of that and you didn't have any agency, which you bring up here shortly, just because that didn't appeal to you and you were an ultra mega I don't know anything, ignorant, casual shitter in the game in the first year or so of the game doesn't mean every single other person was. Yeah. So I don't really buy into the fact that, you know, people were not metagaming. That yeah, in terms of 2012, yeah, people, I don't know, because in the first year of the game, there were definitely people learning and metagaming and trying to figure out the best way to do things. I think it's an extremely ignorant take, or an ignorant thing to say that in general it wasn't a thing that was happening. I don't think you can make that claim, and there's no way that I think you can back that up. Because I can point out in 2013, there were already, with Community Clash, there were already, quote unquote, there were already competitive outfits doing stuff in the game that a live event was hosted for. So you cannot tell me that people at the very early onset stages of the game were not already playing like this. Because the things that I know and understand completely disagree with the point that you're trying to make here.
Very common that you'll watch old PlanetSide videos and there'll be a lot of people just running around mindlessly and they're not really fighting over any strategic goals. Or at least they think they might be, but they're...
See, this is a fundamental problem I have with a guy like this, is that my experience with the game, in terms of the first two statements he's made about it, completely rejects, and I was a casual back then. I was still playing this game casually in 2012 and 2013, but even so, I still understood the environment of the game and what was happening in the game. You can't... To say that everybody was just running around randomly is... And they weren't playing over strategic stuff, like, people were streaming the game. As early as 2014, there were streams and YouTube videos and stuff. For every YouTube video I think that you could find where it's some guy who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, there's another guy or a group of people in an outfit that are trying to strategically cap. That's where all this, like, lore around these bases that we have on, like, Indar and Esamir, or former Esamir, and Amrish, these memories and lore about specific bases and specific fights with all this shit, with these outfits and these rich histories for a lot of people that don't even play the game anymore. All that shit was going on back then. Just because you couldn't find it or you weren't plugged into it doesn't mean it never happened or it wasn't happening. So honestly, I fundamentally disagree with the framing already in this video. Shocker. Shocker. It's shocking that I fundamentally disagree with someone who has a completely ignorant take on what was happening back in the day. What purpose? I'm not really sure framing the game this way. I'm not really sure what purpose this serves. Or, like, what's the point here? Okay.
They're actually just running out in the open, being super inefficient with their time. But that wasn't really largely an issue that...
And, like, yeah, that can be the case because a lot of people are still brand new to the game. Like, there's a lot of fucking... If you ever go and look at the population charts for this game when it first came out, holy fuck, there was a lot of people playing. A lot of people had no idea what they were doing. That's just the nature of a new game that is pumping fucking over 80,000 to 100,000 fucking people. There were a lot of people playing this game right around launch.
That people were concerned with. They just wanted to log in casually. But over the course of a few...
Yeah, but... Okay. I see where this is going now.
Few months.
I see where this is going now. Because we're starting to throw around we constantly throw around the term casually. So I'm guessing this is going to be some indictment of good players, right? This is going to be we're going to have 12 minutes of an indictment of why good players are bad for the game.
Arguably, to the first few years of PlanetSide, things did change to people caring a lot more about faction loyalty, about winning, and if
they cared right from the start, right from when the game launched and you picked your initial faction right away, people cared about that shit right away. That was one of the most interesting parts of the game when it first came out. It was the 3-faction and the asymmetrical balance of the game. They cared about that shit straight from the beginning.
If you happen to lose, it's because you got double teamed or because Vanu's overpowered. And if you won, it's because of your platoon's effort on that last base capture or that last defense. You felt like your contribution mattered and it actually had an impact on the battle, and you're there for something special. Alerts weren't as common, and so they generally were a lot more meaningful for a lot of people. Additionally, through those fast years as well, you get alert rewards, and that may not even just be SARS, there's other rewards that you got as well.
You mean the shitty decals and the shitty... I don't know if you remember this, but there were single-use only camos. Like, I know it's hard to imagine now in the game, but if you weren't a player back then, there were you could buy single-use camos to where you could buy a camo from the store and apply it one time, and that was it. Kurt, can cue like the Kurt Cobain or the Kurt Cobain, Jesus Christ. Yeah. Cue the Kurt Angle fucking meme. Holy shit. Yeah, the awards that you got from winning alerts wasn't right at the launch of the game. It came a little bit later. But the biggest reward for the alert was always the big dump of XP that you got for winning the alert. It was nobody gave a shit about the fucking random decals and shit. Like, my characters are all old as shit, right? So I have a bunch of these stupid ass fucking decals that the game gave me for, winning an alert, right? And I don't think I've ever a single time wore them. Like, it's when you go into the decals and you're looking at shit on your character, like for your armor and your shoulder or whatever, scroll down that shit. That's a giant McHuge list of, like, just the weirdest art fucking it looks like fucking pick art or some shit of just somebody made in T-Ray made that shit in 40 seconds and slapped it into the game. It's the most low effort, awful shit ever. And they used to hand it out. You could have a random chance of getting that and receiving that item as an award for the alert. There were some more, I think a couple very, very obscure weapon skin rewards. And this is something that I used to comment on a lot more, and I used to talk about a lot more, but I've kind of, nobody really cares anymore about it. But I used to say, what a huge opportunity for the art department to make like some really, really fucking cool like 3D skins for guns, like very specific, very niche, like very cool, rare fucking skins for guns that you could potentially win for winning an alert or something. I mean, it would just fit in perfectly with the game. You can have something that people really want to have a chance to win if they win an alert and can randomly get it. And you get to, in your art department, gets to flex and do something unique or original. But of course, that never came. That really never became a thing. So, yeah. If it had been something like that, I think the rewards people would have been way more interested in the rewards. But the rewards are basically have always been tied to big lumps of XP. And lumps of XP equals a lot of certs for people, right? So, and then further down the road, it evolved into ISO. Like a player like me, I haven't cared about XP since probably 2014 or 2015. For me now, like when I was playing more, it's just even now I don't really care that much about ISO. It's just that's all I really cared about. Now, if there was something to actually go for in terms of rewards, yeah, but that's never been the case. People were not playing the alerts. To get back to his point here, people were not playing those alerts to get those fucking rewards because those rewards were fucking stupid and nonsense, essentially.
Which really did have an impact when you were playing the game. Like, it genuinely did matter if you won to a degree. This is
No, it didn't.
where I left the game. I didn't like all the Zarg brawling. I found it dull and boring. I didn't have enough agency to think, okay, I'll pull my own Valkyrie, I'll go solo
Valkyries weren't even in the game at that
Kappa
point.
base, or I'll pull my own Sundra and I'll go deploy it on this fight over here and hopefully people will join me. I don't think a lot of people did during those days. It was genuinely a lot more casual. However,
Again, like, just because that's the way you played the game doesn't make it the universal experience for everyone else. Because once you're getting into 2013 and 2014, it only got more It only got less casual, to be honest, and maybe that's part of the point he's trying to make. But to frame the beginning of the game, or the first year and a half to 2 years of the game, which I think is the time frame that we're dealing with here, as this a casual utopia for the game. Um, Maybe for you it was.
However, as time gone on, things clearly changed. When I came back to this game in 2020, things were far different than when I left. During those 8 years, over time, a lot of players had stopped caring so much about alerts or about faction loyalty. They kind
I think what you're going to see here over time is a lot of the fair weather casual players, a big bulk of them will leave, because that's just a natural thing. Fair weather casual players of games, especially FPS games, are extremely fickle, and they don't generally stick with something for a long time. So they've moved on a long time ago. So when those people leave, it takes with them all of the machinations about like these stupid things that don't really matter, and all the mega casual dog shit and all this stuff. Those people are always in the game, but when a game like this loses a big giant amount of players, it goes without saying that the majority of them are casual. I think that's pretty easy to demonstrate. Because if the majority of the population in your game is casual in the first place, when you have a whole big fat fucking subsection of players leave your game over time, which this game saw immediately, most of those players are strictly casual. So who do you have left? Well, obviously, most of the people you're going to have left, you're going to have some casuals left, because you always have something like that. And casuals will always be predominantly who's playing a game. It just always works out that way. But the mind share and the players who are vocal, especially for this game, and I firsthand experience with this is, yeah, the minority in this game, the good players and the skilled players, they were by numbers a lot less of us, but we knew way more about the game. We could articulate our arguments way better about the game. We were better in game, and we achieved more results in the game generally. Now, from there, it stands to reason that a casual returning to the game into that might see a big change in terms of, okay, this game's different now, because in time like 2013, 2014, 2015, if you were even remotely competent or good at the game, you started to find your little pocket of who you wanted to play with, and those outfits, especially from the experience of playing on Matherson and then Emerald. If you were even like, I played TR first, right? I was a TR main first, and I started to get better at the game. And I was playing for, probably with, I think Nuck had already gotten out of the game. They weren't really playing the game anymore. You still saw onesies and twosies of them hanging around, but in terms of who were the best TR players on the server, I was playing in that group of players. And then I got poached to VS by AC and Vizzy and all those guys, and that was generally how it went. That's part of the reason why TR on Emerald and Matherson has always been so bad, is all the people who were actually good at the game in the game's infancy and early years got poached from TR. So the people who were actually good, most of them got taken away from the TR. Like, they came to the crib and took the baby out of the fucking crib, and when you do that, the demographics don't look very good for your faction down the road, it turns out. Beyond that, the faction was run by AOD, TE, just these big blob, most awful, shitty players possible. And then later on down the road, what's his face? The fucking Pale Tigers outfit. Just Matherson and Emerald TR has always been a faction of complete mouth-breathing, drooling retards. That's who the faction's run by, essentially. But anyway, to get back to the point of the video is, yeah, if you leave the game again, I have to constantly bring up this shit about over idealizing what the game is, and then this culture shock that apparently Zealous had when he came back to the game in 2020.
Kind of became more Zarg Safi type players. They enjoyed chain killing as many people as possible.
Well, that was people Zerg surfed back in 2014. Like that's about the earliest I could remember. 2014, 2015 is when that's even started becoming a term. People have always been doing that. What did he say here?
So much about alas or about faction loyalty. They kind of became more Zarg Safi type players. They enjoyed chain killing as many people as possible.
Okay, what does that have to do with this game in particular? That's what you want to do in any FPS game, which that's what we're playing, by the way. I'm still waiting to hear, why is that a problem?
Or alternately in
Why is it a problem that a good player can chain kills against bad players? Why is it a problem when one player who's really, really good can go kill 10 really bad players? I don't see the problem there.
and arguably more impressively, as a squad of cohesive players trying to beat a horde and capture a base,
Yeah, and we did that a lot.
even though they're overpopping you a bunch. I'm sure
No, except I specifically remember I was in AC, and that was one of the elite Vanu outfits on Emerald. And I specifically remember having maybe 10 to 12 guys, sometimes 13, 14, 15, and fighting 96 plus and holding them off and doing that. Where this idea comes from that and the elite players were overpopping, no, not generally, because you couldn't do that because of the populations of the game. And the elite outfits were invariably much smaller outfits. So you could not actually do that. You could never overpop with your outfit as an elite, being an elite fit. You just couldn't do it.
even back in 2012, this was still there to a small degree, but it's nowhere near as pronounced as it was when I returned to the game in 2020. Players really have got to the point now where they've really learned how to min-max, kill as many people as possible.
And okay, so people learned how to play the game and get better at the game over time. What's the fundamental issue with that?
There's live leaderboards which show how many people you're killing relative to other people.
Awesome, because it's a game about it's a game about killing people and not dying. And in order to push people off points, you don't walk up to them and ask them to leave the point. You have to kill them and not die. Well, you can die, but killing people and not dying is always preferable to killing people and dying at the same time. Because if you're killing people and dying at the same time and you don't have the support or the fucking logistics, you're really not making any progress. Whereas what you want to do what you want to do is remove them from the point by killing them, and then take the space on the point and then push out beyond the point to buy yourself time and space. And in order to do all those things, you have to kill the enemy players who are in the spots that you're trying to go to. You know, because you can't just walk up to them and go, "Hey, could you please go back to the spawn room, please? Thank you." No, you have to kill them and physically, forcefully remove them from the spot that they are playing and put them back in the spawn room. That's how that works. Yeah. So things like this, yeah, this wasn't a thing for a long time, but then again, now it has been a thing for a long time. And regardless of whether this existed or not, kills are still objectively the most important aspect of removing people off of objectives and keeping them in spawn. So who cares? Who cares if there's a way to track it? I don't care. And most of these people on here are fucking awful dog shit 2KD players anyway. You know? I guess 2KD players love... Let's look at some of this here. Oh shit, this guy's died 54 times in an hour. He's got a two session KPM. Damn, that's really good. If you're dying 54 times in an hour, you're pretty much useless. Yeah. Look at how many. Jesus Christ, these people nonstop. Look at this hour guy. He has 48 fucking deaths in an hour. How do you guys die so much? What I see on this list is basically everyone with over 30 deaths in an hour has no idea how to position or play the game, generally. And what do I see here? Wow, stunning. A bunch of 2KD shitters don't know how to position.
During that hour a lot on Fizu, or 2 hours if you look at Honu. Vets developed egos about being good, in a similar way to the Zarg players which they despised, which goaded over the more skilled players simply because they could overpop bases, capture them, and a lot of these vets ironically became what they hated and became very self-righteous and yeah, basically super egotistical. Now to be fair, that part isn't the massive issue. The main issue is
yeah, I'm still waiting to hear what the fucking issue is.
That the skill disparity over time has massively increased to the point now where if we look on PS2 alerts, we can see an outfit that has 10 times less players have as many or more kills than those Zarg outfits. And so
wait, so you're telling me, let me get this straight. So you're telling me that better players than the average casual normie shitter, that if you can get as many or more kills with those players per hour than you can get with a bunch of casual shitters who suck at the game. And this is a skill disparity problem. Okay, but actually, first of all, the first fundamental problem with this argument, especially with the given data, is 1st Terran Mobile Infantry and 0 Hour, they're both on the same faction. So there's not a disparity there because they're both on the same team. And if there is a disparity, okay, oh well. I mean, that's just the way it is. There's a lot of shitty players and there's some relatively decent players. What do you want to do about that, bro? Why is that a problem, and what do you want to do about it?
So basically, that outfit with 10 times less players is 10 times more effective in time.
Yeah, because a lot of them have taken the time to learn how to, like, I don't know, move slightly better than the average shitter, aim slightly better than the average shitter, position better slightly than the average shitter, work together slightly better than the average shitter. What's the fucking problem?
Times of kills per minute. We're now even getting to the point where players are genuinely running around with like a 7KD as infantry, a 55% headshot ratio with an LMG, which is crazy. And it does.
Okay, but what's the problem with that? Because people have been doing that for 12 years. This isn't a new development. And it was actually much more apparent back in the day.
It doesn't even matter if that's assisted by any external programs or not. It's just simply to say that there is really a top 0.1% now that's performing extremely well.
Yeah, but it was also like that in 2013 and 2014 and 2015 and 2016 and 2017. It was like that then too.
Relative to casual players which may join the game and have like a 0.3 KD on average. And again, that's really pushed down so much because casual players get farmed so well by vets which have got so good at farming.
Okay. All right. So we had a guy, the lead game designer, for the former lead game designer Rel, spent every single waking moment and almost every single patch he ever put into the game trying to push the fucking skill floor into the skill ceiling. You're aware of that, right? Maybe you're not. I've talked about it. It's probably one of the things I've talked about the most on this channel. Yeah. Because you know why, Zealous? Do you know why good players farm shitters? This is going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind. It's because they learned the game. They applied what they learned. They might have some innate small percentage of talent and became better at the game than your average casual shitter. Okay? So when you have good players and bad players, generally your better players and your good players farm and kill shitty players. So someone who takes the time to learn how to aim and control their weapon's inaccuracy, inherent weapon inaccuracy in the game. Someone that takes the time to learn that, practice that, and master that. Yep. In addition to learning base layouts, how to move, when to move, you know, FPS fundamental basic things. Yeah, so basically the people that learned how to do the fundamental basic parts of playing an FPS game really well generally tend to beat out the people who don't give a shit, don't learn anything about the game, refuse to improve at the game. That's generally how it goes. So, what's the problem here again? That shitters who don't want to learn the game, or shitters who don't, because let's not boil this down. Let's not fall into the trap that he's trying to lure you into in saying that. Once again, another good player bad video. People that are good at the game are bad, inherently bad for the game, which has got to be the most fucking retarded loser take you can have. Don't fall into the trap of just thinking that we're just talking about sub BR 10, right? He's going to probably make it seem that way. Like, yeah, if you're a new player to the game, and most new players I found don't have any fucking clue. Number one, probably don't have any business playing an FPS game. Or if they do play FPS games, they're extremely, extremely bad at them. And then they come into this game, which is 12 years old now. And even back, it was like this even back in 2013 and 2014. You brought up the statistics about the guy with 7 KD. My brother in Christ, I was friends with one of the fucking most infamous players on the server who ran a 10 plus KD constantly as infantry all the time. Nivex, you might have heard from him. There were a lot more players doing that back then, because there were more players to go around. And when you have, like I mentioned earlier, when you have more players to go around, most of them are shitty. So you had way more shitters to farm. It was crazy. The account that I was banned on from Dolphin Gate had a 7.5 KD in like fucking 2 hours. Okay? Yeah, it was relatively easy. Well, if you were any good. It's not easy for people who don't understand or are unwilling to learn, or just want to log into a game and instantly be equal to everybody else just because they logged in the game. Sorry, bro, that's not how it works. And why does everything always get back to good players and skilled players are bad in your videos? Why is that?
This, back in the day, was nowhere near as big of an issue, and
you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. It was way fucking worse. It was way fucking worse. Do you know why? Because there were more players in the game, and there were way more good players. You look at the state of the servers now, and there's what? 1, maybe 2 fucking outfits on a server on each faction that can actually farm shitters, who are the majority 2KD dog shit themselves. Dude, the amount of actually good players that was in the game, fucking 2013, 2014, 2015, holy fuck. It's not even close. People got their fucking shit pushed in constantly back then. And that was before Rel got a hold of the game and spent 7 years buffing the ever-living fuck out of the most brain-dead, retarded playstyles and absolutely nerfing the fuck out of everything good players used.
And over time, that skill disparity issue really has become more and more pronounced. Now, there are ways
No, it hasn't.
in which the devs can control for those very skilled players by decreasing the skill ceiling a little bit with some very simple
And they've done that over and over and over again.
things.
See Rel's entire existence developing for the game.
like making the headshot multiplier a little bit lower, arguably, which could have essentially been done back with the Arsenal update by basically embedding the nanoweave resistances into all the classes by default, also making it apply to heads.
Dude, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I have two. That brings up. He mentions two specific things: nerfing the headshot multiplier and making nanowave passive. Which, oh by the way, I have an individual video for each one of those topics. Why making nanowave passive is retarded, and the headshot multiplier, and potential in nerfing the headshot multiplier. I have 2 videos on the channel. I'll put them in the description. Go watch those fucking videos.
And
I'm tired of listening to people like this guy, man.
effectively the headshot multiplier therefore would have been lower. And then you wouldn't have also had the issues that arose from removing nanoweave, where suddenly shotguns in the meta, and arguably, assumedly, that would have addressed the bolting issue as well. Now, of course,
okay, first of all, there is no bolting issue, okay? The issue for bolting comes from a class that has invisibility. The invisibility is the issue. The bolt, who cares? Whatever. There's crappy, shitty one-shots. The bolt is not the problem. The problem with the bolt is that it comes from a guy who's fucking invisible. The problem with the bolt is that it comes from someone who's fucking invisible. All right? Weren't you talking about agency earlier? And all this shit about... Again, you fundamentally don't understand why Arsenal is incomplete. You fundamentally do not understand why the nanoweave change in Arsenal was a big fuck-up and is incomplete. I'm stunned you don't. But I for the 7,000th fucking time, I will explain it to you in case you do actually watch this video. The reason the Arsenal update and the nanoweave change is incomplete is because you removed nanoweave from the game. Good job. But you didn't normalize any of the fucking brain-dead, retarded, body shot, high-damage weapons, okay? If you're going to remove nanoweave from the game, everything above 200 damage you need to normalize. And you know what they did 8 months after they well, first, they buffed shotguns 3 times during the Arsenal update patch, all right? Which tends to lead me to believe that the nanoweave change was a fucking lazy, shitty throw-in that nobody did their homework on, even though the fucking homework had already been done for them for probably 3 or 4 years, okay? But that's Rel. Rel made that fucking change in bad faith in order to slam the fucking skill floor into the skill ceiling, which coincidentally you've just brought up in this video. Arsenal Update is one of the biggest skill gap compression patches that has ever been released to this game. Hands down, bar none, no fucking argument. If you don't understand that, if you don't understand how a patch that buffs the fucking compensator by 100 fucking percent from 15% to 30%, tries initially to put an angled grip in the game that reduces first shot multiplier by 80 fucking percent. It made it into the game at 60%, but holy fuck, what game have you ever played? What FPS game have you ever played that has an attachment that reduces first shot multiplier by above 50%? That's fucking insane. All right? We systematically buffed the ever-living... We're still power creeping and buffing scout rifles, right? For some reason. I don't know why. We buffed shotguns in the same patch that removed 20% reduction to small arms. Massive buff for shitters. We nerfed Adrenaline Shield and made it so that rank 5 of Adrenaline Shield is now worse than the original rank 1. Gee. Wonder who that nerf's targeted towards. Could we maybe be raising the floor into the ceiling? I don't know. How about K-cap ammo? How about giving more weapons access to unstable ammo? I mean, I could go on. Arsenal Update is the biggest skill gap compression patch ever put into the game. And it was Rel's last gasp, his last-ditch effort to try to do exactly what you're calling for, Zealous. And do you know what difference it made? And this is a fundamental problem that people like Rel don't understand either. And obviously, you're stupid enough to not understand it either. Is that no matter what you do, no matter the changes, the balance changes. By the way, I thought we weren't going to talk about balance changes, but here we are talking about the lowering the headshot multiplier for some unknown fucking reason. Look, man, no matter what you do, and listen to me, because I know you're going to have a really hard time understanding this. Good players will always shit on bad players. And there's not a value you can change. There's not... The discrepancy that you're talking about was the good player's compromise. The nanoweave removal was the good player's compromise to not have the headshot multiplier nerfed. Because if you nerf the headshot multiplier in this game, all you do is give more power to numbers. And numbers already have all the power in the fucking game. I know that it's extremely hard for someone with your perspective and your experience in the game to understand, but you mentioned the word agency earlier. And having a 2x headshot multiplier in this game is one of the only things that a good player has agency with against numbers. Otherwise, the game just turns into how many numbers do you have? How many people can you dump on a fight? Which I think a lot of people could argue, and I think you're right to argue, is already the way the game is.
Of course, this is one example. There's plenty of other examples too.
And all of your other examples will completely fucking fall flat on their face like these two examples do.
The idea that vets can chain pull 10 air-to-ground ESFs, drop on the exact location that they need to be after they've got a few kills, and then continue to get more kills really is a bit absurd.
I do agree. And one of the actual core fundamental problems of the game that you probably never mention is the availability of force multipliers. In this case, infinite fucking free ESFs forever. So it doesn't ever matter if you fucking dumbfire some retard in a fucking Reaver or Banshee or a PPA scythe. It doesn't matter because they can just pull another one. This game has infinite people, potentially. I mean, the game's dead and dying under 1,000 players on my server, but in a game that has infinite fucking players, potentially, or let's say even 96 plus, to have the ability to have no restrictions, realistically, because nanites are not a balancing tool, the availability to still chain pull everything in the game is a fundamental problem in the game that has existed since we fucked the resource system. Okay? And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, we used to have 3 separate resources that were tied to territory. So all you sped autistic morons who think you're playing a war simulator, back when the game had 3 distinct resources that were tied to territory, aka if you lost this fucking hex, you lost access to this amount of fucking, let's say, air resources. Wow. It was almost like a strategic war game, in a sense, is when you lose territory, you lose the means of production and manufacturing and resource gathering in that territory. Holy shit. It's like you actually had some logistics in the game. Well, it turned out that when shitters lose and they start losing, it snowballs because you lose the ability to pull force multipliers, yada, yada, yada. Wow, just like in a real fucking war. I keep being told over the years how the game's a real war simulator. But whenever we had even something remotely close to approaching that in terms of logistics and strategy when it comes to terrain and territory and bases, fuck that. We can't have that. We need to go to the Chuck E. Cheese Nanites point token system. Right? And we're going to take pool timers out of the game. Fundamental problem. Accessibility for fucking force multipliers. That's a fucking fundamental problem. Not the headshot multiplier's too high because I'm bad at the game.
Vets are also afforded a lot of uptime with things like Adrenaline Shield, which up until recently was very strong, Assimilate, Medkit. Also, back when the devs were implementing a tutorial, the kind of things that I was lobbying for.
You know how you get uptime with Adrenaline Shield? You have to kill people. You don't just exist, okay? This is a fundamental mistake that you're going to make, bro. Just having the Adrenaline Shield, the tool in the game, doesn't make it fucking overpowered. you still have to do all the things required to get a kill. You still have to fucking aim well. You still have to position well. Adrenaline shield doesn't help shitters. It doesn't help shitters. And people for years have been telling shitters and people that can't kill people, you know, the very basic explanation to someone when they're asking a question about what shield should I use for heavy? Do you know what the line has been for 12 fucking years? If you can't, or really it used to be more this way. Maybe, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I don't really know what it is now, but the general consensus was if you suck dick at killing people, then with the prohibitive costs of certing into Adrenaline Shield, if you're a new guy to the game, just cert into, and with the slight learning curve of resist, which, you know, whatever, just use the default shield, because you had to, somebody mathed it out that you had to achieve a certain KPM for Adrenaline Shield, return, and everything to be even equal to what the Nanite Mesh Generator was. And the Nanite Mesh Generator is the basic default shield. Yeah, that was always the line. So Adrenaline Shield doesn't do anything if you don't kill people. I hate to tell you guys this, but if you don't kill anybody, the Adrenaline Shield doesn't do anything. Maybe for the first fight, right? Because the value of the shield is 450. There's a 30 activation cost. So you never have 450 unless you're balls deep in a gunfight and kill a few people, which isn't all that relevant because you're going to be taking hits at the same time. So effectively, you have 420 HP, okay? For one fight. One fight, you get 420 HP. And 420 HP is, what, I think maybe 2 bullets, 3 bullets, depending on the damage model of what you're getting hit with. So you get to get in one fight with that amount of HP. And now the return is so bad. The return on Adrenaline Shield was nerfed by 43% the last time it was touched. So you get back rank 5 Adrenaline Shield now gives back less than rank 1 Adrenaline Shield used to give. You get fuck all back. You get nothing back. You get a, I don't even think, what is it? I forget the math. I'd have to go back and re-put in the math. But it's something like 1 bullet in a situation where I know when I'm playing the game, I'm fighting against, I'm not in a one, this game isn't a 1v1, it's not. So you guys get lost here in trying to balance in a 1v1. It's a 1vx game. And in a 1vx game, the Adrenaline Shield, especially now, it's kind of shit. And do you know why it's shit? Because Railsaw, that's what everybody was using. Okay? And that good players were still able to leverage the Adrenaline Shield. Oh, which, by the way, even though it's nerfed and it's complete dog piss now, good players are still shitting on shitters with Adrenaline Shield. I mean, so you gutted the shield and made it just feel worse so that shitters can still get farmed by better players? Because with the heavy assault, people complain about the heavy assault, but shitters don't pull heavy assault anymore. Why don't you shitters that complain about heavy assault, you don't pull heavy assault anymore? Why? You guys all pull infiltrator. Why is that? I thought heavy assault was the most insane broken class ever. But the problem with heavy assault for shitters is that you still have to aim. The weapons are less accurate, by the way. You still have to be able to aim, and you have to be able to position, because the shield is not worth a fuck if you still can't position.
With the new player experience was I wanted to see things like an in-game crosshair for everyone instead of just the vets. I wanted to see a way to configure your aim like more accurately within the game itself, so that kind of thing again is more accessible. And there's plenty of other ways that aren't like super toxic to vets that we could have leveled the playing field a little bit. And of course,
dude, how level do you want to have the playing field? And this is a fundamental fucking misunderstanding of players, of generic shitter players. And this is the same fundamental problem that developers like Rel have. No matter what you do, when you log into a game, and I need you guys to understand this, just logging into the game and playing the same game as someone else does not make you equal to them. I'm sorry, guys. And when you do that to a game, when you take everything out of a game and you strip it down and make it as naked as possible, which sounds to me like these players are always pushing for that, right? When you want to do that, your game becomes boring and uninteresting. There's nothing interesting about a FPS game with no skill gap. There's just not. Because what that turns into is a bunch of random dog shit with random variants, and everything is just a roll of the dice. And for someone who mentioned agency earlier in the video, that's ultimately what you're asking for. You want every gunfight to be, it doesn't matter that the other guy's better. It doesn't, and I hate to do this, but I don't understand why you guys are playing this game. Because this game has long had a solid stationary skill gap. It's been attempted to be assaulted and eroded over time. But, you know, I would be really curious. I would actually be really curious to watch this guy play any other game. I've seen him play BattleBit a little bit, but other than that, I think the problem for the most of these people is they're not FPS players, so they come into FPS games with they all have these same takes. You know what I'm saying? They all universally come to these retarded opinions. And I've watched it play out over time, and it's very interesting to me.
Of course, again, maybe decrease that skill ceiling a little bit. I'm not talking about anything crazy or drastic.
Dude, you're talking about nerfing the headshot multiplier and fundamentally, what are you talking about?
I just don't think it should be as overbearing. It genuinely...
Dude, this game is as skill compressed as it has ever been. And if you don't understand that, then I can't help you. That's not my problem. If you don't understand how skill gap compressed this game has become over time and historically, I can't help you. That's not my fucking problem.
Is also, you know, that top 20, 30% that just is so much better than the players.
It's not like 20 to 30%, dude.
That are fast coming into the game.
And why is that a bad thing?
And it is so brutal for those casual players.
Okay, then learn the game like every fucking body else did.
There's so many mechanics to learn with Planet's side that just don't really seem that intuitive when you first join.
Which ones are those?
Even things like redeploying to a new fight, like how are you supposed to find out?
Okay, yeah, for sure. The UI and moving around on the map, that's pretty unintuitive. But when it comes to weapons and shit like that and movement, there's not really much movement. And the weapons are an extremely casual gunplay basic form of recoil drift and fucking spread increase per shot with a first shot recoil multiplier. I mean, it ain't fucking quantum mechanics, bro. These are all things that have been in universally every FPS game for almost 2 decades.
Now, exactly if you don't.
Now, is it that, or am I right in the fact that the people that come to this game have no fucking clue what they're doing because they don't play FPS games? And they think this game is somehow something different.
Don't read the tutorial. If you're someone like me that disables the tutorial in every single game right away and you want to kind of learn for yourself, how do you learn for yourself when you first come to PlanetSide 2? It's very difficult. Now there is one other related core fundamental issue with PlanetSide 2 that I want to address in this video simply because it's so related. And that is a lot of people with their wallets have actually voted that they want equity of outcome instead of equality of opportunity with their multiplayer online fast-paced shooter game.
Wait a second. So you're telling me,
That is, a lot of people with their wallets have actually voted that they want equity of outcome instead of equality of opportunity.
Gee, equity of outcome sounds an awful lot like skill gap compression to me. Doesn't it to you?
With their multiplayer online fast-paced shooter games. Now, what exactly am I talking about? That sounds like a complicated sentence. Like, what the hell does that mean? What I'm basically talking about here is matchmaking. People want
He can't give it up, bro. He just can't. He can't give it up. He's back on the matchmaking train for PlanetSide 2, bro. He's back on it. Oh my god. Oh.
to have what they deem to be a fair experience in quotation marks, which is against people of a similar amount of skill to them. And so pretty much every single
Then why the fuck are you playing this game? I play this game because I enjoy farming shitters, right? And then I also play Siege. I'm going to go play a competitive game. I'm going to go play Rainbow Six Siege. Wow, crazy. I don't log into PlanetSide 2 and I'm like, I expect to have a fair, competitive outcome. That's what I want to have. That's what I want to do. Everybody's equal to me, and that's how the game should be. No, I play other games. This game is a simulator for farming bad players. That's what it is. Period. End of story. For every good player that's watching this, you log into the game to kill people and farm shitters. Don't lie. That's what you do. I know you do because it's fun. It's fun to beat up 5th graders. And it's fun to watch them react to it that way. And it's fun to, like, this guy's permanently scarred from that. So congratulations. Give yourselves a hand. You have fundamentally farmed this guy's mental so fucking hard that he's talking about skill-based matchmaking in an open fucking world Battlefield type game. Like, there's heavy damage being done to my brain cells.
single fast-paced shooter game now, besides maybe BattleBit, which is arguably a indie title. Besides that, pretty much every single one now has matchmaking, and pretty strong matchmaking at that. So basically,
it's skill-based matchmaking, which doesn't solve any of the things that you want solved.
over the last 10 years, there's been a massive shift away from servers where you get to know people on that server, you become
which is shitty.
friendly with that group of people.
I mean, those going away are shitty.
Maybe you join their team speak.
The whole curated experience of pressing one button and getting match made is dog shit. And I wish it would fucking die.
Or whatever, you get to know people over the course of years.
And some of you guys have never experienced anything other than that, which I'm sad for you. Honestly, I really am.
Which used to be the way things worked. That kind of switched over to being Discord, and now the online experience more so is just matchmaking against randoms that you're never going to see again. Basically what matchmaking is, for those that don't know, is in these multiplayer games now, you're even in casual lobbies, matched against people of a similar amount of skill as you. And so basically you always have a chance to do decently. Whereas it used to be people all had an equal opportunity to do well because they all had the same arsenal, they had the same gun, and then it was up to you to fight against the odds and beat those skilled players by becoming skilled yourself. But now we've really moved to equity of outcome where everyone has a decent chance of winning. You're never put against really bad players relative to you, and you're never put against really good players relative to you. And so everyone kind of just stays in their little hug box these days.
Yeah, that's the perspective from someone who's stuck in the fucking middle who doesn't ever get any better at the game. If you want a real take on players, on good players, and the elite and the top players who play in skill-based matchmaking games, it's total and absolute fucking cancer. And again, we're going to do the over-idealized idea of what a casual shitter who's not very good at games thinks skill-based matchmaking is, but that's not in reality how it actually works. Now, for you, for a player who's not very good and will never end up in the upper end or the extreme lower end, you are going to sit in the middle of the bell curve probably, maybe on the lower side, Zealous. So yeah, you'll probably never play because most of the players in that system are in the zone that you're in. Okay? So you have an infinite amount. Theoretically, you have a pretty high chance of having equally fucking matched games. Now, there's just a bigger pool of you because you're the hump in the bell curve, right? Yeah. Well, it's a little bit different for people that are towards the top of the bell curve. So for those people, and in these team games, what happens in skill-based matchmaking is you don't play only against. So here's the problem. When you start to get towards the tail end of the bell curve, the amount of people available to you gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. So invariably, depending on the number of players in the game mode that you're trying to skill-based matchmake, it has to expand a little bit. So generally what happens is if you're in the upper echelon or the upper tier of skilled players in a team setting in a game that has some kind of skill-based matchmaking, is there's not enough players to fill out what it needs to be in the game, because those players, there's simply not enough players around your skill level to fill a lobby appropriately, or else you'd be sitting in queue for the whole time. Look at Quake for that. Yeah. So what ends up happening is a really good player will get put on a team, and as the game's trying to matchmake and fill out your team, you start running out of players that are the same skill level, right? So what the system will do is it will start to put shittier players. It'll take the best player in the lobby, and it'll put a bunch of, let's say the game mode is 6v6, right? It's going to take the best player in the lobby and then put 5 absolute fucking retards comparatively. Now, they might still be generally good players. They might be above average, but they're not probably good enough to be in that lobby in the first place, but the system had to reach out and expand to try to find them and put them in there. So it's going to put those people with the top 1% guy on the team. So now the top 1% guy has to sweat his fucking balls off to carry those 5 useless retards against all extremely very average players. That's the experience of almost every top 1% player. Now, I know it's easy to not care about that player, right? Because the majority of people are going to be sitting in the bell curve like Zealous. But when people like this, when people who are sitting in the most comfortable band of the range of the bell curve there start to try to talk about what is and what isn't good about systems with SBMM, it comes from a place of you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You're sitting in the area of the matchmaking where you have the most players, and nothing ever, you're always going to play people as shitty as you for the most part. And some games, depending on the populations, a guy like this might be in a lobby with a 1% guy. He might be on his team. There might not be enough players to matchmake. When a game's population gets significantly low enough, then you have people like this falling into those teams. It's not perfect. It never is perfect. And one of the biggest problems with it is, how do you determine skill? Because skill is an extremely nebulous thing especially when it comes to matchmaking, right? Because a lot of matchmakers strictly use win and loss, right? And win and loss has always been, in general, I guess for the most part, it turns out that you can approximate average skill from win and loss record, but it depends on the game. There needs to be a lot more context there, to be honest. So fundamentally, I kind of disagree with SBMM in almost every single aspect of how it's run. At least in all the games I've played.
In most multiplayer online fast-paced shooter games. And that clearly is something that people want. It's got to the point now.
No, shitters want it. Because shitters never want to play anyone better than themselves. Ever. And it's funny that 2 years ago, during the Outfit Wars thing, I almost did this same exact lecture to you, but you're right back on the fucking skill-based matchmaking train. I mean, your views and points on the game, you haven't learned anything at all. You have literally learned nothing. over the last 2 years, and it's impressive.
Now, where people want to have the easy experience so much that in Call of Duty and Fortnite, and it's crazy I'm even saying this, I can't believe this is happening, but people want to be mollycoddled so much now that there's AI that are in the matches with the actual people, and like the usernames are intentionally like disguised as maybe it's a real person, maybe it isn't, I don't know, but I know I got this kill and I feel happy about that. And so everyone now is artificially running around with a 2KD, because maybe, you know, half the people they kill are bots, and then half the people they kill are actual people. And that really...
Yeah, but for a good player, I don't that might make a difference to you, but to a good player, I don't care who I'm killing. Like, I'll kill the real player this exact same as a bot. You know? It doesn't really make a difference.
Really is where the industry is heading. This truly is one of the last games where you are not mollycoddled. PlanetSide is perhaps...
Right, and that's been a good thing. That's partially why the game is still alive. I know that probably doesn't make sense to casual shitters who quit the game because they died to a good player, but the reason why so many people are still sticking around, most of the people that are still sticking around care about the game and care about the time they've invested into it and blah, 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 blah.
For casual players and for new players, one of the hardest games out there. In realistic terms, other games may have more difficult mechanics, but you'll be placed against people of a similar amount of skill. Now, to be fair, there are still some arguably other notable exceptions which are bucking the trend of matchmaking, but even exceptions to the rule, something like Arma 3 was released in 2013, it certainly is fair to say that...
Dude, Arma... what? I'm telling you, man, these guys don't know at all what they're... Why are you bringing up Arma 3 in the conversation of matchmaking? It's a fucking milsim game.
Most of the first-person shooter games these days do have matchmaking, and it is pretty strict. And you might be thinking, no, I join casual lobbies, and yeah, there's matchmaking, but surely the matchmaking is just to find people with a similar ping, right? No, the actual truth is there's hidden matchmaking, hidden MMR in video games, and there has been for years. Even if you're not seeing a rating or seeing a score, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so yes, this really is the second core fundamental issue with PlanetSide 2, in my opinion. This game does not hold your hand anywhere near as much as other fast-person shooters
and that's bad.
Do these days.
That's bad. That's what you're saying?
Other fast-person shooters hold your hand so much you have no idea. Related to this and
that's true.
The fast point is the fact that, again, matchmaking doesn't split up those top 10% of players into their own little league. They are there with poor Jimmy that's BR1 or BR10, and he has no idea what he's doing, and he's just trying to shoot off like an air pad on a tower and trying to shoot that aircraft that killed him last time or kill that tank, or he's just trying to like not die immediately, and then a vet just comes along and kills him from behind, standing on top of a tower, or you know, someone with avoidance sensor shield running around a tower killing all these casual players.
Okay, so the vet killed players in the game.
God, I don't know who would be bad enough to do that. Anyway, I guess that's a good time to end the video. There are a bunch of other core fundamental issues with PlanetSide 2 that we haven't yet gone over, but I would love...
Well, considering how this first video it isn't even a core fundamental issue, I really look forward to
in a future day. Hopefully I'm going to do this week's series, we'll see how it goes. I also want to take this time very quickly to tell you guys something that you may not be aware of yet. And that is that on our Discord, we do weekly ops on Friday at 7 PM. You're more than welcome to come join. We're starting it back up because hey, why not? Additionally, there's a plethora of other multiplayer games that we do play together. It's a real online community which extends far beyond just PlanetSide, and so if you're in the EU especially, I would encourage you to check out the Discord. Link to that is going to be in the comment section, where of course I do read all comments, so feel free to leave one if you would like to. As always, it's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I'm out. GG. Bye bye.
Alrighty, there we go. We have it again. So we're opening the new year, 2024, with truly people that cannot learn and are stuck in the same old shit. So once again, thank you guys for joining me. 2024 in terms of what I want to do for the channel. I want to do more gameplay stuff this year. Maybe it'd be commentary over gameplay stuff like that, but I definitely want to do that more because I've become very much a talking head on the channel, but I always have to talk about being in the top 1%, but I don't post any fucking gameplay and people complain about that shit. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, and I look forward to more videos in this series because if they're as remarkably retarded as this video, then we're going to have a lot of fun. I'll see you guys later.